we got here, the trajectory of where we're going, and what we as everyday people, common sense human beings who intuitively know that men and women are different, what we can do to combat this movement.
It is extraordinary to see what's happened in sport, but I do think that the woke worm is turning. I am beginning to feel like the silent mass majority.
We have got to tell you about this recent Piers Morgan interview that had us all hooked from start to finish. It's all about how Piers and Riley absolutely exposed this woke activist and his lies. If you're as fed up with the woke culture as I am, you're going to love this.
In any sport that requires a fairness and equality around size and power and speed, which of course is determined largely by biological sex. It's why we separate the sexes for the Olympics, for example. I do feel...
Piers is on his show and he's questioning this journalist, Ernest Owens, who's trying to defend why we need a whole month dedicated to Pride. Ernest starts by saying it's not just about sexuality, but also about giving a platform to those who feel underrepresented.
Information about gender.
Tell me one thing she said. Tell me one thing she said that's wrong.
Weaponizing transgender people.
Tell me one thing she said, Ernest, that's wrong.
That is just the biggest.
Ernest.
Classic woke talking point, right? But Piers, being the sharp interviewer he is, doesn't let that slide. He asks for specifics. What exactly has Riley Gaines said that's misinformation? And here's where it gets good.
I feel more hopeful now than I have felt in these past 2 years since I've taken this stand. I think parents are waking up. I think coaches, female athletes, medical professionals. I think your everyday person who otherwise maybe would have considered themselves apolitical, probably people who thought...
Ernest cannot give a straight answer. Instead, he goes on about how transgender people are supposedly misrepresented and weaponized, but he cannot pinpoint a single lie Riley Gaines has told. Piers presses him further, asking why we never see trans men competing in men's sports. The silence was deafening.
Not threaten the existence of women.
No one has said that. Nobody said that.
But it is the vibe, though, isn't it?
Hang on. No.
That is the vibe of this whole debate.
No.
It is, though. That's definitely the vibe.
I'm sorry.
I'd say that's the vibe of your whole channel, actually.
Ernest, nobody has ever said that. No one said that.
It's because, as Piers rightly points out, they wouldn't be able to compete. Biological reality. Folks, men are generally bigger, stronger, and have more testosterone. That's why the whole debate about trans women and women's sports is so contentious.
Why? Why do we give 1 day to veterans of world wars and a month to gay people, for example? No harm intended on Mr. Barr here. I'm sure we'll be responding in kind to. But I have no issue with James.
Now, Ernest tries to pivot the conversation to calling Piers transphobic, but Piers isn't having it. He stays on point, hammering home the fact that biological men and women are different, and that's why this whole issue of trans women in sports is problematic. The woke student keeps dodging, unable to provide a single fact to support his argument. It was almost painful to watch, but also so satisfying to see Piers tear through the nonsense.
I wrote and spoke about a lot about how horrific it was, and it had to affect real change, which it did. But that day when everyone was told to do a black square on their Instagram for a day, and I just didn't want to do it. And I instead posted a picture of myself in my local park with a bottle of rosé and got...
Then it gets even better. Piers brings up a tweet from Ovarian Cancer UK, saying, anyone with ovaries can get ovarian cancer, regardless of gender identity. He asks, quite logically, how many men have ovaries? The answer, obviously, is none.
And
we have to have this
women,
you know where this takes you, Ernest?
Abusing.
Ernest.
These are far.
Ernest.
These are far. These are
you
far
mean
right talking
biological
points.
reality
Ernest,
is far
you know
right?
where this,
Is that it?
Here's what
Hey,
is
Ernest,
my...
if
Hang
I'm
on,
a transphobe, then you are a misogynist.
And
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
complaining with Pride Month.
That's complete nonsense. The Ovarian Cancer UK.
So defend.
But Ernest tries to deflect, saying it's about raising awareness. Piers isn't buying it. He points out how ridiculous it is to ask if men can get ovarian cancer. And when Ernest tries to shut him down by saying you cannot criticize a charity, Piers calls out the absurdity of that logic. Just because it's a charity doesn't mean it's immune to criticism, especially when it's spreading misinformation.
Respond to literally all of the insane things that have been coming out of your mouths over the last 10 minutes, to be honest.
What was insane
it would
about
take
anything Riley said?
I do find behind closed doors
what was
quite
insane about
offensive.
anything Riley said? This is what Riley
Listen,
gains.
can I just reply to Esther first?
You
Because
can.
I don't want to
Everything
disrespect
Riley ever says, people like you go, it's insane. And when I say, what is it she said that's insane?
It's a great question.
You want to move on?
No, I think what she said about how she doesn't agree with it, but whilst also saying, I don't, well, that's not really supportive,
have to
is
agree
it?
with you.
It's not supportive.
She doesn't have to
why
agree
does
with you.
everyone need to...
The student's final defense? Calling Piers intellectually dishonest for comparing race and gender identity. But Piers nails it again, asking if he could identify as a black man.
If I now identify as a black man, am I a black man?
Why are you conflating race with gender, Piers?
I'm just asking you a question, Ernest.
That's intellectually dishonest.
If I identify...
That's intellectually dishonest.
Maybe, but it's a question you don't want to answer, isn't it?
Ernest says no, because Piers is white. Exactly.
Am I a black man
Listen,
if I say I'm a black man?
You can be...
Am I?
No, because you're a white man, because
Thank
it's
you.
race.
So you don't
because race
respect
is not...
It's a perfect illustration of how ludicrous the self-identity argument can be when taken to its logical extreme. You cannot just identify as something you are biologically not, whether it is race or gender. The woke student has no comeback, and Piers ends the discussion with a decisive win.
Well, okay, hang on.
No, it's the same thing with left. Anybody you don't agree with, you call woke. So if you're gonna call anyone you don't agree with woke or extreme or lefty,
yeah, literally, I don't even know what that word means.
I'm gonna call you all that.
It's the past tense.
What's really striking about this whole exchange is how it highlights the contradictions and logical fallacies within woke culture. They cannot stand up to scrutiny because their arguments are based on feelings rather than facts. And Piers, with his no-nonsense approach, exposes that brilliantly.
I'm not a hypocrite, but I'm saying
not everyone
that's why I'm trying to explain why the left get upset.
Right,
it's because we're looking at it and going, the only thing you're bringing up is trans.
Let me bring in Riley. Let's try and get some order here. This is exactly my... Ernest, wait a moment, please.
The hypocrisy is...
Wait a moment, Ernest. Riley, here's my point.
In the end, it's clear woke culture thrives on shutting down debate and avoiding hard truths. But when faced with someone like Piers Morgan who demands facts and logic, it crumbles. Watching him dismantle these weak arguments was not just entertaining, but also a reminder of why we need more voices like his pushing back against the tide of wokeness. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.